Reciprocity, the new Copernican revolution. I'm Tina Fields, and it's September 2021. Hello, friends, both old and beloved, and those not yet met. I'm sorry to not be able to participate in real time with you for this conference. My partner and I are enjoying a very long-planned traveling vacation for the first time since the pandemic. I just saw my first wild grizzly bear the other day with 2 cubs. But even though we're on the move, I wanted to offer this brief perspective. Really, it's a reflective opinion piece on our overall field and where it's going. I've been involved in ecopsychology for a long time. I moved to San Francisco for graduate school in 1990. That's 31 years ago. Yikes, I can't believe it. Anyway, 1990, to explore a field that actually didn't exist yet. Rosak would name it 2 years later. Back then, when discussing what I was interested in, I was looked at as if I had 3 heads. From the late 90s to the mid-2000s, I finally figured out that if people could understand a bit what I was talking about if I described what I taught as the social science side of environmental studies. I still got looked at as if I were a wild-eyed hippie, because at that time, other than human animals were still thought to have no real feelings, only responses. Levels of consumption, uses of resources, these were not something to question. This was the unexamined backbone of success for individuals and a thriving economy for the collective. The governor of my state, California, proudly drove not one, but a fleet of Hummers, which got on average 10 miles per gallon, which is 4.25 kilometers per liter. After 9/11, U.S. citizens were exhorted to help out and be patriotic by going shopping. Our world was, and to some extent still is, honestly, seen by the dominant culture as comprised of dead matter that we can own and use or abuse as we like. So few people had heard of ecopsychology. After a few lines of discussion, inquirers would often nod and smile politely. I'd be polite, and then they'd kind of drift away to an easier conversation. In colleges, some people joked that environmentally focused programs were the doom and gloom departments because we discussed controversial issues, like climate change, pernicious toxins, environmental justice, impacts on the poor and the people of color. At these times, these things just weren't considered valid science. We taught wild ideas like whole systems thinking and examined how the cultural belief systems of the industrial growth society contributes to our globally shared problems. It's dangerous stuff. And sadly, most faculty and administrators at the 4 institutions I taught at didn't want to think about our fundamental relationship with the earth, the matrix of all our lives, or include aspects of sustainability as part of the curricula for all subjects being taught in the institution. Like diversity, thankfully, is now more and more. Sustainability has yet to catch up. Even though now, of course, the evidence has become really clear to nearly everyone that we're collectively in a major environmental crisis. I've been teaching now for 22 years. The past 10 with the Ecopsychology Master's Program at Naropa University. And now, when someone asks what I teach, more often than not, they'll either be familiar with the word ecopsychology, or I'll at least get the response, that sounds cool, tell me more. So the field's really growing, almost a renaissance. It's rapidly spreading to many countries worldwide, as witnessed by the recent growth of IES membership, taking on flavors of each unique place and addressing their own specific needs. It's exciting times. Many empirical studies are now proving scientifically what we've known all along in our course, that quality time engaging with the rest of nature is good for us. And ecopsych has now hit the mainstream. In the USA, anyway, Popular magazines and newspapers regularly publish articles on elements such as raising free-range kids who are allowed to roam and play freely outdoors, or ways to simplify your life, articles about climate anxiety and the health benefits of being out in nature, or even having pets and gardens at home. They're good for us, right? We know it now. And some U.S. employers can now justify giving longer lunch times to include a walk like Europeans have long enjoyed. And some doctors can now actually prescribe vitamin N, which is nature time, instead of Prozac in cases of anxiety or depression. The science allowed that. And this is a beautiful thing. But it also brings with it new danger. This danger, as I see it, is reifying the same tired, old, dominant philosophy that got us into the mess we now face in the first place. The idea that nature is here for us. Vitamin N is an object, an inert it, and worse, seen as a saleable commodity rather than a complex matrix of interconnected subjects, each with their own needs to be considered, their own desires, their own will, their own spirits. And the underlying subtext in all of this is the question, what can nature do for me? Right? It's all about me, the isolated, autonomous individual, and it's also based in a flat materialist worldview. And this attitude could also lead to furthering the ever-widening economic splits we're experiencing now, especially in the pandemic, with only the more privileged classes able to access wilder places, or to have the vital basics of sanity at and near their homes. Things like daily silence, darkness at night, healthy food, clean water, and safe walking spaces. If ecopsychology is to be any use at all, it must remain true to its roots, which means that it must remain radical. The English word radical, R-A-D-I-C-L-E, after all, means root. As you likely know, one of ecopsychology's roots lies in deep ecology, an eco-philosophy first articulated by Arne Naess in 1973 and was expanded on by Bill Duvall and George Sessions in 1985. Deep ecology contains 7 basic principles that lay out a fundamental rethinking of the human-nature relationship and human consciousness. The last principle states that once a person understands the principles, they now have a duty to act upon that understanding. So deep ecology isn't just a talking philosophy, it also includes walking that talk in order to create righter relationship with our beloved planet and our relatives here in other sorts of bodies, ultimately leading to a more ecologically sustainable way of life. My beloved teaching partner, Travis Cox, likes to say that the study and practice of ecopsychology, which came out of deep ecology, helps us to become more human. We're learning to be more human again. We industrialized humans have the striking opportunity now to reorient ourselves and our behaviors in a way that can lead us back toward the possibility of thriving as species over the long term. In 1543, Nicolaus Copernicus proposed the radical notion that the sun didn't revolve around the earth. This heliocentric theory caused considerable uproar at the time because it meant the earth is not the center of the universe, which in turn implied that we humans are also not the center of God's attention. It was very hard for people in Europe of that time to accept that we are not the most important thing around. Our current global industrial growth societies are in a similar moment of paradigm shift now, it seems to me. We're facing the uncomfortable realization that humans, ready for this? Humans are not the most important species to the living earth. Gaia, So it's time to collectively grow up, to quit acting like selfish toddlers or teens demanding everything we want right now, and instead begin to act like caring and responsible adult family members to Earth, like Indigenous folks have been doing for millennia. To once again co-create a more just, sacred, and sustainable human society across the globe. Paradigm shifts are hard. We're used to having everything our own way, right? The field of ecopsychology must be poised to address this in a skillful way. In the early days of ecopsych, concerns expressed about the trajectory of our field included Ted Rosak's despair that it wasn't being taken seriously or applied in any useful way, and Dr. Leslie Gray's fear that it would devolve into yet another branch of mainstream psychology, therefore becoming tepid and useless to create any real change. With the current burgeoning interest in nature connection for human health even being prescribed, I see Rosak's fears allayed, but Gray's vision in great danger of coming to pass. As environmental crises become ever more important to ignore, it's clear that human desires can no longer be seen as the most important, taking precedence over the survival needs of the planet or our relatives in other types of bodies like animals, plants, insects, or rivers. Ecopsychology offers lovely ways for people to reconnect with the more than human world, to remember who we are, to regulate our nervous systems through practices like forest bathing. And nature connection activities are becoming more and more mainstream. Because of this, our field is at a point of particular danger along with the opportunity. As a truly international organization, we are strongly poised to intervene. We must be vigilant that ecopsychology does not devolve into a tepid form of psychological therapy as usual. In other words, reifying the isolated, autonomous, individual human as the center with the thought, what can nature do for me? We must instead reinstill the necessity of fostering reciprocally beneficial relationships with the more than human world and each other at the core of our theories and our practice. So I am encouraging us to invite everybody we work with, students and clients, to develop a strong personal relationship with the places they live and the other than human neighbors living there. Develop a deep bioregional understanding of our homes, however temporary. You can see my extended bioregional quiz for suggestions. I'll put the link. So if we receive a benefits from visiting a beautiful place or encountering a being, then don't just stop there and go home. Inquire into what that place or being needs. Learn something, and then find a way to give back some service in return. If we all do this, things will change. In other words, make the core of our ecopsychological practice the continual development of mutually beneficial and enjoyable friendships with the more than human world. Make our profession benefit everyone, not only the humans. And make it accessible to more humans, all humans too. In this way, we'll all thrive and also enjoy even more fun, sometimes even transpersonal magic. Thank you so much for listening to me today. I hope this talk offered you something of benefit, and I wish you beauty walking forward.